At MedStory, we take privacy seriously and follow all healthcare privacy laws. Some details may have changed to protect confidentiality. The views expressed are solely of the individual speaking and do not represent the views of their employer.
We're in the middle of the snowstorm. No one can get anywhere, so the doctor could not get in. And it looked like a routine delivery. Everything seemed to be going fine. And the mom started having major complications. And it became scary for me. And I was a first-year resident, and not even an OB resident, mind you, a family medicine resident. And we had very few residents in-house at that time because of the snowstorm, too. I was trying my best, but there was just so much that I can do as a family medicine resident.
Welcome back to the MedStory Podcast, a show where we share the stories of the greatest minds in science and medicine. I'm Spencer Locke, and on the show today, how Dr. Sejal Desai has shown us what resilience really means. From being a doctor to a single mom, and now an entrepreneur who runs her own practice and leads a group of women physicians who are all on a mission to give high-quality care to their community. You've heard me say this before, but building something meaningful isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about learning and growing from them. But for one doctor, those challenges came one after another. From her childhood to her professional life, and each obstacle forced her to become more resilient. It's an unusual path for a physician, especially one who started her career in a system that often prioritizes speed over human connection. In an industry where doctors are expected to churn through patients on a tight schedule, Dr. Sejal Desai wanted to do something different. She was a voice for a more holistic approach to health, a philosophy that was often at odds with the mainstream medical world. Today, Dr. Sejal Desai is known for founding Tula Medical, a practice focused on personalized weight and wellness care. But the path there wasn't obvious. At the time, she was an employed physician and saw 20 to 25 patients a day, and she seemed unlikely to succeed because of the lack of resources and network to start her own direct specialty care clinic. But I want to dive even deeper and go back to her childhood. She grew up in India, immigrating from the United States. And that is where her story really begins.
I was just barely 6 years old, but it was such a big change in my life. So I think it was just such a big impact. I do vaguely remember a little bit of time before that, being excited, hearing from my parents, we're going to move to America, and me telling my little friends. They were like little vague memories of that and being very excited about it. But then when it happened, and especially I remember that time at the airport being pulled away from my grandmother, I think that is seared in my memory as my earliest memory, and realizing that this is happening and I'm moving far away and I may not be able to see my grandmother for a long time. So I think that became real all of a sudden to my 6-year-old brain at that moment. And then coming to the United States. So my parents were never the family who was always going to move to America and had always been looking forward to it. It came very last minute. All of my dad's brothers and sisters had moved to America and gotten married in America and had kids in America. He was the last one and always said, I'm going to stay in India with my parents. This is what I want to do. And I think after he had both my brother and I, his family members, especially his older brothers, were saying that this is a land of opportunity, right? This is one reason so many immigrants come to this country. He really sold my dad on the fact that it's the land of opportunity. Your children will have way more opportunity if you come here. And so my dad made that very difficult decision to leave everything. And he had a very high position, both he and my mom, actually. My mom also had a very high position in a bank in India, both of them. And to leave his parents and the rest of his family and come to the United States was a big thing. But it happened very quickly because my uncle was like, you've got to do this and we're going to get it. We're going to do it now. And everything came through and all of a sudden we were moving. So because my dad had never planned to move here, I was not in an English medium school in India, so I did not speak English. My first language was Gujarati, which is the language of the state that I lived in India. And so I came here not speaking a lick of English, not knowing anything. My parents had nothing. They left everything there. And when they were at the head of their bank, so they were bankers. When you come to the United States, bankers aren't really a whole lot here. So he was just struggling trying to make a living. And here I am in the second grade. I was also very young for my age because I had started early in India. So I was at 6 years old, but in the second grade, which here you would be in the first grade. So I was young, didn't speak any English, and had to learn English on top of, and it's the middle of the school year. And so I had to figure out how to fit in and learn. They wanted to put me back, not just in first grade, but they wanted to put me back in kindergarten because I didn't speak any English. And my parents fought that. Being Indian parents, they were like, no, we are not putting our daughter back 2 years. They got somebody to just do a translate, and the school asked me questions and we had a translator. And after, I guess, this interview, which I don't really actually remember except for when my parents tell me, they felt comfortable enough to say, okay, let's try her out in second grade and see what happens. So they put me in second grade. I had to take ESL, which is English as a second language. And, young kids pick up languages very quickly, especially when you're surrounded by it and you're living in that country. So I picked it up very quickly, but, I was a very shy kid. And so even though I was learning it very quickly, the other students didn't realize that I knew English. And so I faced a lot of racism, and there was a lot of different things going on in bullying and lots of things going on in school at that time because I was a kid who didn't speak much and they just thought I didn't speak English and didn't know anything. So it was a very tough time, that second grade, I would say. And then I didn't tell my parents. I just kept quiet because my parents were facing their own challenges and struggles. And so I felt like I couldn't talk to them about it either. So I just stayed quiet. And we actually ended up moving about a year later at that time we were in New Jersey. And then we ended up moving to upstate New York. And then I think things started improving because now I'm at a new school and I started making friends and coming out of my shell a little bit. So it got a little bit better. But yeah, that first bit was a little hard.
I want to go back to the moment where you were like, you know what? I actually want to become a doctor.
Oh, yeah, way back. So I think as far as I can remember, I've pretty much always wanted to be a doctor. I am not even sure exactly where that stemmed from, except that my uncle was a doctor and I didn't have any other family members, surprisingly, even being Indian, didn't have any other family members that were doctors besides my uncle. And we used to come to Houston at the time and he'd take me to his practice. And I just felt this fascination with it. There was just something that it ignited within me. And that was in maybe middle school or so. Then by high school, I started volunteering in hospitals and really doing a lot more hands-on stuff. I didn't grow up in a doctor family, so I wasn't around it except for what exposure I had. So the more I started getting exposed, the more I realized this is really something that speaks to me and definitely a path I want to follow. So I continued to work in hospitals and did a lot of volunteering, mostly with kids. I thought for a long time that I wanted to be a pediatrician. I loved kids, loved being around kids. And then I would say probably it wasn't until after medical school that I decided I want to work with both. I love adults, I love kids, and I don't really want to work with sick kids as much. I really enjoyed the preventative aspect of medicine really early on. That was something that just resonated with me. I never understood why we were just spending so much time treating disease when we could be preventing it. So I really wanted to be able to do that. And so then family medicine became the natural choice. And that's what I ended up doing. My initial residency and my training and all of that was family medicine.
So I want to go back here. So is there any moment that sticks out in your mind? I want you to take me to that moment, if it does, when you were either in your uncle's office or when you were in high school doing it, where you were like, well, this is actually a pretty cool moment where I might want to go into this career.
Yeah, so there are actually several, but I would say that one of the biggest was when it was one of the times that I was in my uncle's office and I would see patients with him. So he would take me and I would be there alongside him and see patients. And my uncle is this big personality. He's a cardiologist and he is this big personality. Everybody loves him. His patients just love him. And there was this one lady. I remember this little old lady, and age is so different now than it was back then. She was probably in her 50s like me, but she was this little old lady, and she had been suffering with chest pain for a really long time. And everybody had just kept telling her, it's nothing, and it's all in your head type of thing. And my uncle had done all of the testing on her. And it was not anything cardiac, but he sat down with her and he really talked to her like a human being, spent time with her, and told her that this is not something that's cardiac, but he really just talked and listened to her and listened to all of the things that she had to say and all that was in her heart and in her mind. And she left there just feeling so much better. And I could see it. She was happier. She was smiling, and she was just thanking him profusely for just spending time with her. And I just thought that was so profound. Because we do spend so much time. It's so easy to give a medication or to prescribe a surgery or to do for him a stress test or whatever it is. But this was like him taking time to be there for somebody who needed just somebody to hear her out. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to really go into a field where I can actually help people, listen to them, and really be able to take that time and do that. And so I think that's really what pushed me in that direction.
That's a really powerful experience. And it's nice. It's rarer than it should be when the doctor can actually have the time to sit down and listen to the patient, but we can get into that later. So now you go through high school, college, you get into med school. Are there any moments throughout that time where you felt really challenged or really had to face a lot of adversity, or was it pretty smooth for you?
Oh, yeah. No, there was a lot of adversity. I wish I could say it was just smooth all along. But, I think all good things come with a little bit of challenges. And I think that can be good in a way, because I think that every challenge I've had, I've learned so much from every step of the way. My parents were immigrants when they came to the United States. And so they didn't really know much about any schooling in the United States. So I felt very just figuring it out by myself. I was the older of two kids. My brother was quite a bit younger than me. And so I really was just trying to figure things out. I did very well in high school, breezed through, didn't have an issue, went to college, and really struggled hard in college. I felt like I wasn't making the grades I wanted to make, and I wasn't doing all the things that I had envisioned for my future. And part of it because I didn't have any guidance and didn't really know what to do and how to do it. All I knew is I want to go be a doctor. And my parents were like, we support you. But then there was just not much else besides that. And so I did all the things that I needed to do, I felt like, but I didn't have the grades, and even the MCAT score, I felt like was not what I wanted it to be. And I did struggle getting into medical school. I applied to many different medical schools, didn't get in here in the United States. So I ended up applying to a medical school in the Caribbean. And I went to one of the medical schools in the Caribbean. I could have waited a year. A lot of people said maybe wait a year and see if you get into the US. And I just thought, I don't really want to waste time. I got in, and the school I got into, I felt was a really good school. So I was like, I'm just going to go and I'm just going to do this. So that was tough. I was maybe 21 years old at the time and had to leave all my family and friends and everybody. And I was engaged at the time, my fiance, everybody behind to go to another country. This was before cell phones, obviously, even before internet, because I remember getting access to internet while I was in medical school over there. So I really felt completely isolated, not knowing anybody, and being in this, it felt like a whole different world to me. I had never even been anywhere else really in my life, and just started on my own. So it was a very hard time. The way that my school worked is you do 2 years in the Caribbean, and then your rotations, you come back to the United States and you do your rotations in the hospitals here. But those 2 years were very hard, trying to just maintain relationships with my fiance, along international. At this point, my parents, my friends, my brother, everybody was back in the States. So it was hard to even communicate. And then so I felt very lonely and isolated out there in the Caribbean. And it sounds like, it'd be fantastic and fun. And I actually did end up meeting some amazing women who are my best friends to this day. but it was a rough time and it was challenging. But I also just kept thinking, this is 2 years and it's for my future and this is going to help me. This is going to get me my medical degree and it's getting me to where I need to be. So I just kept focusing on that as much as possible. But I would say those 2 years were very challenging.
Tell me about a specific moment or tell me a story from within those 2 years that stick out when you were like, wow, that really sucked.
Yeah, I think there's, again, several, but something that really sticks out, I would say so my fiance was a medical student. We were the same year. He was a medical student in the United States and is at a school in Kansas City. And so I would always compare out my education to his education. And our education was very similar. We were learning very similar things. We could ask each other and quiz each other and all of that was very similar. But what wasn't similar was the amount of help that he got in his medical school, the facilities, all the assistance, the training, the innovation that he was exposed to versus what I was exposed to in my first 2 years over there. It was very much self-led. Everything that I had to do was you have to be very self-driven and you have to be very much a go-getter in order to succeed in the Caribbean, actually. And so that felt sometimes it just felt like, how am I going to get through this? Or how am I going to make it? Because I don't even have the resources that I need to succeed. And eventually we all figure it out. We leaned on each other. I think that also brought me to be so much closer to my classmates and especially the women that I'm even still so close to this day. We bonded so much because you're on this small island together and our whole class as a group bonded so much, but we all became a lot closer because we leaned on each other for help and for guidance. And I think this community of people was much more impactful for me over there because we didn't have as much.
Yeah, I'm sure that's taught you to be resourceful. And you're like, you know what, especially when you have to lead a lot of it yourself, that is something that may not be in the curriculum, but can teach so much about life, right?
Absolutely. It's so, so important. And you're right. I mean, those are the experiences that made me who I am today, I guess, because it is something that those obstacles are absolutely things that you learn from. Resourceful, resilient. I mean, I think all of those things. Anti-fragility was a big one. That's a new word I had learned recently, but it's not just resiliency, but it's growing from that resiliency and learning from that resiliency and as we move forward in life.
Anti-fragility. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's basically when you are faced with challenges, and we're all faced with challenges in our life, right? Nobody is free of that. If you're a human being and we're lucky enough to live long enough, we all have our challenges. And it doesn't matter what you do or where you are in life, we all face challenges. And I think that for me, I've had several challenges along the way and initially I was born in India. And when I moved from India, I was 6 years old, very young, moved to the United States. That was probably one of the biggest obstacles I've faced in my life. It was because I grew up with not just my parents and my brother, but with an extended family of my grandmother and grandfather, who I was very close to, but, almost like a mother and father. And my aunt and uncle lived in the house with us. We were an extended family. We all lived together. And to be torn apart from that, I felt like it was torn apart, going to a whole nother country was one of my biggest challenges, I think, in life, and very hard because I was very close to my grandmother. So I feel like I looked at that as a challenge my whole life. Like, what? Almost used to think, why do these types of things? Why did it happen to me? And trying to deal with it and overcome it and figure out how to move on from it. But over the years, I started learning that things like that happen to you for a reason. They're there to make you grow, to help you grow. And I think that's what anti-fragility is. It's basically the resiliency that you develop from obstacles helping you to grow and become who you're meant to be. And I think that helped me become more independent. I think it allowed me to go to the Caribbean and be able to succeed there on my own, even as lonely as I felt. I think all of these things in life, it's like one thing leads to another. And as long as you're learning and growing from it, I think so it's not just resiliency. Anti-fragility is learning and growing from that resiliency.
I love that. That's cool. You're teaching me that term. And I think that one thing that you want to be really clear with is that fragility does not equal vulnerability, right? Because vulnerability can be a superpower, whereas fragility can be your kryptonite. And that's where if we combine those all together into our life, being like, I'm willing to be vulnerable, put myself in an uncomfortable situation, maybe where I'm going to go to medical school outside the US, that's vulnerability that actually is going to lead to anti-fragility and resilience, wouldn't you say?
So true. That's so well put, because I think vulnerability is at the core of all of that, right? We have to be able to be in touch and tap into our vulnerability in order to do any type of growing.
Okay. So we've immigrated from India. We're now on the East Coast. You grew up, you had to learn English, then had those experiences with your uncle, were exposed to the medical system, saying, okay, yeah, I want to become a doctor. You go to high school, college, get into med school in the Caribbean, right? You're separated from your fiance. You're going through it. Now we're at the point where you finally get a return to the US and do your residency, right? Now, take me into a moment that sticks out when you returned to the US for that.
I came to the U.S. initially to do my last 2 years of rotation. So medical school, year 3 and year 4, rotations were in the United States, and it was all over. So my school had affiliations with programs all over. And the reason I chose to be all over is because my fiance was trying to figure out where he was trying to get into ENT, ear, nose, and throat residency. And that's a very subspecialized, difficult residency. So he was doing rotations all over. So I started following him all over. Wherever he was going, I was going for that 3rd and 4th year. And so that was a lot of moving. Just every month I was in a different location and was just living out of my car pretty much for the most part, and just trying to follow him around wherever he was. So I did that for about 2 years, and then trying to get into a residency as a foreign medical graduate. It has its own challenges, and there's different exams and things that we have to take. And that was also it was just added on top of, I still have to do everything else the U.S. students have to do. So went through all of that and did that. And then I had other pressures, as in now I've been apart from my fiance for so long that I really want to get into residency where he is for his residency. But luckily we both got into residency in Michigan. So I did end up doing my family medicine residency in Michigan. Yeah, and that was family medicine in 2000 to 2004. So I was there during that time.
So I just want to make sure I get this right. So you returned back to the U.S. You didn't have a residency dialed in. You said you were living in your car. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I was living in my car pretty much because every month there would be a different rotation that I was doing. So one month I did surgery in Youngstown, Ohio, and the next month I was doing pediatrics in Florida, and the next month I'd be doing family medicine in Oklahoma. So it was literally, I was just moving from month to month, finding housing wherever I could. Didn't have any money from my parents, thank God, relying on them quite a bit, but still came with all this medical school debt. And we have one big thing about Indians is you have like family and friends all over. So that worked out well for me. I stayed in lots of people I owe for this, but I stayed in lots of different people's homes throughout those months, just trying to find places for rotations.
I love that about the Indian culture and being like, oh, we're related somewhere. You come stay with me for now. I got you, right? That's not the way here in the US. So I love that so much. So then you get there, you do your residency, and then you have to find your first job. What happened there?
Yeah, well, residency in and of itself was a lot.
Tell me. Give me the highlights.
Yeah, all of a sudden you think, oh, I have this white coat now. I'm a doctor. You graduate from medical school. You have your MD. And then you're thrown into this residency and you're expected to know so much where really you've had very little exposure to patients. And at this point, you're still learning. Residency is we're still learning. And now in residency, you specialize. So I was family medicine. So I was in a hospital and doing a family medicine residency, rotating through the different wards and we even did obstetrics. We did a lot of obstetrics actually in my residency. But from day one, you're thrown in, right? It was a 3-year residency. So you go in your first day, your first year. And I don't know if you ever watched the show from back in the day. It was called Scrubs. And it was on at the time that I was doing my residency. So it was a show about these residents, these students that are residents. And it was a comedy show. It wasn't like ER, it wasn't drama, it was comedy. And it was funny, but it was really, this is how my life was. And I remember that first time that they called a code. And in the show, they call a code, it's like code blue, and all the residents are expected to go. And the first person that goes runs the code. And so in the show, you see them like hiding in the cabinets, in the closets, and that they don't end up being that first person. And literally, that's how you feel. You hear that code blue, and God, if it's like the room right next to you, you're going to be the one to run that code. This patient it doesn't have a heartbeat and is potentially dying, and you have to run the code to save his or her life. It's a lot. It's a lot on someone, and especially in that type of a stressful situation. So just navigating things like that. The first year of residency, you're also we had night call every third night. So you're working like 36 hours during that shift. And then you're expected to work again the next morning, right? So you don't get to rest. At that time, we were working close to 100 hours a week. I remember sometime during the end of my residency where they started instituting no more than 80 hours per week for residents, but that was not the case for us. I mean, we worked about 100 hours a week easy. And you're expected to take care of people and save lives while doing this. It's hard, it's challenging. And after my first year of residency, my fiance decides to switch residencies. And now we're in Michigan. I'm doing family medicine. He's doing ENT. We had just gotten married. We got married after medical school. So we moved to Michigan together after having been married. We were together for a year, and he decides to switch to dermatology. So with derm, you go where you can. He went to California, and I was in Michigan, and I loved my residency. I didn't want to change and start all over again because I literally would have to start all over again. So I decided to stay, and we did the long distance thing. But then it was just me by myself over there. But it was a time that there's so much that happens during that time of residency, right? There's so many ups and downs. And the one thing, there's so many times you just want to quit because you're tired from working so much. You feel like you just don't know anything.
Tell me a specific story or time where you're like, oh, this really sticks out in my head.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So we did a lot of obstetrics, like I said. And one of the times that I was on OB call, and OB was the hardest for me, right? It was the hardest because you are delivering babies. These babies' lives are in your hands. And so many times, because we, as family medicine doctors, we ran those wards because we didn't have an obstetrics and gynecology residency program. So we were the first person that got called as they're waiting for the patient's doctor to arrive, right? So we did a lot during that time, and I delivered a lot of babies during my 3 years. I also did just everything else because a lot of times doctors don't make it from home or wherever they're coming from, right? And so it's the resident who's there who's delivering the baby. And I remember there was a time when it was, I had a patient that I'd been following for a while. I'm calling the doctor on call, and it's in the middle of the snowstorm. And because we're in Michigan, this is the other thing. I'm not a Michigan girl, born in India, raised in Texas. Like the snow was something else. And so we're in the middle of the snowstorm. No one can get anywhere. So the doctor could not get in, and it looked like a routine delivery. Everything seemed to be going fine. And the mom started having major complications, and it became scary for me. And I was a first year resident. I mean, and not even an OB resident, mind you, a family medicine resident. And we had very few residents in-house at that time because of the snowstorm too. The baby had shoulder dystocia. The shoulder was stuck, and so the baby could not come out. And it was just such a stressful situation. And I was trying my best, but there was just so much that I can do as a family medicine resident. And luckily, we had one of the other, not that patient's doctor, but another OB doctor who was there in the hospital, came in and saved the day and took care of all of that. And it all worked out, and everything was fine. And the mom delivered naturally, and everything turned out okay. But when that OB doctor came, the patient's doctor actually got to the hospital, she just chewed me out. She felt that everything that I had done was not right, and I didn't follow protocol, and that I could have cost that patient their life and their baby. And all I remember, and I can't even remember the logistics of exactly what it was that I had done wrong. I'm sure there was something I had done wrong, but all I remember is her just yelling at me and screaming and saying, "You're never going to be a doctor. You're not suited for this. This was a female obstetrician, and she just was just yelling so much." And I was so defeated after that. After that, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know how to handle this. And mind you, in residency, lots of residents get yelled at by their attendings. That's just something we do.
Sure.
And that is something we go through. But this just seemed a little bit more. So I thought I was going to just be done with it at that point and wasn't going to continue. And I had this conversation with my grandmother, my little old grandmother in India, who was still in India at the time. And she told me, she was like, "You have to keep going. This is just one small little thing. This is how you learn. This is part of life. This is part of learning. You have to keep going. And you never know in life. You cannot give up. What are you going to do? You're going to give up and do what?" And I was like, "I don't care. My husband's going to be a doctor. I don't care." And she was like, "No. You need to be a doctor. You don't know where life is going to take you. You have come this far and, you're going to see it through." And she was always my just guiding light, I feel like, throughout residency. And so thank God for that talk I had with her. I did end up getting divorced many years later and was on my own and am on my own. And I still feel like I owe it to my grandmother to that she was there for me and just told me to keep going, have your own career, have your own life.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible. It's really like for you to go through that roller coaster, but then have that mentor to guide you through that, I can imagine was invaluable at that time. So when you finished residency, did you go and end up working for a hospital or clinic, or did you go directly into your own thing?
So when I finished residency, I joined my husband at the time. So I joined him. He was still finishing up his residency in California. So I went to California and I just worked there I just did locums there, which is just working under somebody not under somebody, but I worked I take that back. Let me start over. When I went to California to join my husband at the time, I joined a practice working part-time. And I knew that would be temporary. It was just temporary because we weren't going to stay there. He had a couple more years to working both from. So we moved to Austin, Texas. And I actually was pregnant at the time that we moved. And I actually stayed home after my baby was born. I didn't start working until she was about 2 years old. I actually stayed home to be a full-time mom for about 2 years during that time. So
talk about anti-fragility and resilience, because to go through that experience, a really challenging residency, and then have to take a break from that craziness, and I don't even want to say take a break from medicine, because you were obviously being a parent. Did you find it being hard to transition from doctor to parent and then back to doctor again?
Yeah, it was actually very difficult, more so than I thought, actually. And at first I thought, okay, both my husband at the time and I, we discussed it and we said, okay, he's working full time. I'll stay home and raise my daughter. But, I don't think it was fully my full decision to do that. I think I was going along with what he wanted, and it didn't make me as happy as I thought. I was incredibly happy to be able to raise my daughter and to be there for my daughter and all of that. But I missed so much. I missed my practice, my patients, just doing what I loved to do. So after 2 years, I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a full-time mom. I have trained and worked this hard, and I don't want it to go to waste. And the thing with medicine is it's constantly changing. So if you're not actively staying engaged and seeing patients and doing clinical work, even though I was reading magazines and doing like learning things and things like that, if you're not actively seeing patients, it can be you can miss a lot. So I felt like I was missing a lot. And after 2 years, I finally said, I'm going to go back. And I went back part-time. And I stayed part-time for a long time, and I just worked for somebody. I was an employed physician for all of those years. We moved from Austin to Houston. I still just worked part-time, because I still loved being a mom. I loved it. It's my favorite thing in the world. I had my second child about 8 years after my first one, but nothing beats being a mom. That is absolutely the best thing and the most important job that I have. but I also love what I do in my clinical practice. And so it was nice to be able to go back part-time to be able to do that.
So at what point in your career were you working and then you guys got separated, and then were you taking care of the kids and working at that point? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I was still working at that time when I filed for divorce. This was in 2017. So I was working part-time and I had gotten my obesity medicine board certification. So now I was double board certified and practicing obesity medicine along with my primary care practice, doing all of that. And when I filed for divorce, this was a very conscious decision. I had looked into lots of things, planned it to where this was going to be something that was, now I'm going to be a single mother, so having to take care of my kids and have the income to be able to live was all very important. So I made sure that I planned all of that properly. And I was working and things were going well. The divorce was very challenging. One of the, again, biggest obstacles of my life to go through that, but was able to get over that. And then I take that back. I was able to get through that. And then COVID hit, right, in 2020. And that's when things became very challenging because now I was relying on my parents' help and they were older. So during that COVID time, my practice stayed open. We did not shut down during COVID. We were seeing COVID patients from morning till evening. I wasn't doing obesity medicine anymore. I was just doing family medicine, seeing COVID patients. And at the beginning, it was scary. We were donning and doffing this full gowns between patients because we didn't know how this was transmitted and how bad it was. And I was scared coming home to my children because I'm seeing COVID patients all day. So I'm like doing all the things that we did as doctors. We changed in the garage. We changed our clothes and shoes and everything before we came inside. I couldn't have my nanny. I had to let my nanny go at the time too. And my daughter stayed home. She was older in college. She stayed home. But my son, I'd have to quit my job if my kindergartner had to stay home. So he was still going to school, small school, moved him to a small school, but he was still going to school. So all of that, navigating all of that just was very challenging. And I think it went on for years. Obviously, we all know COVID didn't just end in a week or two or a month like we thought. It had been going on for a while. And that's when I really started feeling that burnout type of feeling, especially with family medicine.
So at what point in this story did you start your own clinic? Because you have your own clinic now, is that right?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then around 2021, end of 2021, I decided I needed to just figure out what I wanted, what I needed. I felt like I was living my life at that point, whether it was for my ex-husband or whether it was for my family or whether it was for my kids. Finally started saying, I need to figure out me because my health started suffering at this point. So I started noticing my hemoglobin A1C is going up. I'm pre-diabetic now. My LDL cholesterol is going up. I started seeing these physical changes in my health. And that was really the wake-up call to say, okay, this stress, we've got to do something. It's my body screaming and I've got to listen to it. So I finally decided that, what brought me joy was really the obesity medicine practice, helping patients get healthy and helping them live these lives that were productive lives and living their best lives. I loved all of that. And the primary care part was tough, seeing 20 patients a day, only being able to spend 15 minutes with these patients. That's not how I wanted to practice medicine, right? I really wanted to reimagine how to be able to do that. So I decided that I was going to leave primary care. Felt almost like another divorce to me because this was my bread and butter. I'd been doing this for almost 20 years at this point, and I loved what I did, but I just didn't like the way that I was doing it. So I decided to leave that and just start my own practice. I decided to start a weight and wellness practice. So I'm obesity medicine and I do help patients lose weight, but it's more than that. It's about getting healthy and it's about overall holistic wellness, meaning we're taking into consideration their whole life. And this is what I love. I wanted to be able to just spend time with my patients. I didn't want to be limited by insurance. So I opened up a direct specialty care practice. So it's fully direct specialty care. Patients just pay for what services they get, basically, is how it works. And insurance doesn't tend to cover health care anyways. Insurance covers sick care, right? They cover if you get a heart attack or stroke. And so, but they don't cover the prevention of the diseases like cancer and dementia and heart disease. So I just said that I'm just going to start my own and do things the way that I want. And the vision that I had was really to be more patient-centric. And that brought me more joy in my own life because it brought down my stressors too. I wasn't running ragged. I got to see 5 patients a day versus 25 patients a day and be able to spend time with them. So that's really what I wanted to do. And that's why I started this practice. It's called Tula Medical. And Tula really just means balance. So that's what I was seeking in my life. I was seeking balance, but really balance for my patients. It's at the heart of what I do and what I want my patient experience to be with their health journey. So finding balance in their body, their mind, their lifestyle, right? All of that stuff. It's not just weight and without the extreme diets and punishing exercises and things like that. So that's why I developed this program, this practice. It's just my vision for health.
That's amazing. And how has it been going? Have you been able to replace your previous income or are you still building up to that?
Oh, it's been so fantastic. So I started off very small. I was a one-woman show, and I started off as only virtual, which was the silver lining in COVID, because in COVID, we all learned how to do virtual medicine and practice it very well. And when you're doing lifestyle guidance and modification, it just worked very well. So I was fully virtual. I worked from my home office. I had very little overhead. I got an EMR and I made a logo and I made my own website and just did it all. I figured it all out on my own. I didn't have much training or background, but you know what? With the World Wide Web, we have everything at our fingertips nowadays, right? You just need to find it online. And I did. And I just built a very small micro practice where I charged for my time and my services. And I would say because my overhead was so low, I did end up, it took me a while to get to the point of where my salary was as an employed physician. Probably took me maybe about a year or so, I would say, to get to that salary. And then just in 2025, I'd been working on this for a couple of years, but in 2025, I opened up my location here in Katy, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. But up until now, I remained fully virtual. So I just had a practice that worked around that, and patients had to see their primary care doctor for their physical, so I could make sure they're physically good. And then I did everything else, including anti-obesity medications, just the whole gamut, everything that's needed for the personalized journey. But now I get to see them in person, and I absolutely love that. So.
That's amazing. Do you have any staff, or is it just you in the clinic?
Yeah, so now I finally do have some staff, and now I have one assistant who works with me at the office, and I have a couple of virtual assistants as well. So
I love it. That's awesome.
It's still small. I will always remain small. My goal is not to make millions off of this industry that people are making millions off of, because my goal is really to deliver that personalized attention. And all my patients get to see me, and they all have full access to me too. They all have a HIPAA-compliant text messaging platform. They don't need to check Dr. Google. They can just ask Dr. Desai. That's really what I want it to be. And so that has always been my vision, and I've continued to grow the practice, and I will continue to grow the practice, but I will still always just be this micro practice.
I love that. I love that you're very clear on that too. You want to create a practice where you have autonomy and you can treat how you want to treat and give high quality care. And still have quality of life too, without burning yourself out again. Right?
Absolutely. That's been the biggest thing, is that autonomy is not being dependent on someone else, right? Now if my son gets sick, I can just take off and go pick my son up from school and take him home, or I can change my patients to virtual and just see the patients from home. It gives me so much more autonomy as a mom, especially now that my daughter is in college and I don't have her to help me out as much anymore.
So at what point now did the organization with the women in medicine come into play?
Yeah, so one of the things that I loved about moving to my own practice versus being in an employed practice was that I had more time to do so many of the other things that I enjoyed. And part of that was speaking. So I do a lot of speaking. I speak at conferences and all different places, and I love doing that. That's been such a big part of my joy. And then the other was really these organizations. I started being more involved in different organizations. And one of the things I realized is there's not an organization where I can just easily reach out to other women physician business owners. And I had a couple of friends and I would just bounce ideas off of. And one of my friends, one day we were talking and I was like, we should just form like a little group. I thought it'd be like a little group of a few of us, women physician business owners in Houston, because I wanted it to be a personalized group. I wanted us to meet in person. And we have many different women physician groups, but I wanted this to be specifically business related, not about nannies, and all of that is important. I need all of that too. But I wanted it to be very specifically business focused, right? And networking with each other and just learning from each other as we all are struggling with different challenges than men have as women, honestly. And so I got a few of us together and a few people told a few more. And before I knew it, we're now at 150 members. So we recently formed an actual organization. We're a nonprofit organization. We have a board now, and I'm the vice president of this organization. And I just love what we do. We have this community of women physicians who are all independent practice owners in Houston. We meet once a month. We also do we meet in person or virtual once a month. And it's just been fantastic. We also have this very active WhatsApp group, and we've had to categorize it into different areas. We talk about everything from clinical questions to, do you know a tech person? Or what do you think about, what do I do about this patient? It may just be a business admin type of question, or anything and everything that is on our minds. We're talking, we're discussing. It's just been a wonderful avenue to be able to network and talk to all these other women physicians who are in the same position that I am. So,
wow. What do you think? Is there any story that sticks out within this organization where you had a connection that came together that really turned out to something cool? Or just a moment that sticks out of connection within that group?
Yeah. So, gosh, one of the big things that we did is we had a holiday party last December, and it was a huge turnout because a lot of times our in-person meetings are smaller turnouts. I mean, we're all women physician moms with our own business, so it's hard to make these in-person meetings a lot of times. But we had this huge turnout at our holiday party, and I met so many different women from so many different aspects of medicine. And gosh, I forgot where I was going with that. Let me think this through.
That's okay.
Trying to think of what I was going to say about that. I had a story.
That's okay. You're connecting with them and you were just coming to the realization of how, the connection was, or...
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just amazing to be able to meet with them in person, have these conversations, form these bonds and these relationships, and really just even learn from each other. I just fascinated with all the different specialties that are represented here. Everything from orthopedic surgery to colorectal surgery to ophthalmology. In January, I turned 50 years old, and the week before I turned 50, I was rushing around trying to get like all these different things done. My life was being a little crazy at the time. We were just getting ready to open my new practice. The building was just built and we were opening up the new practice. And I was literally running around and I fell and I fractured my radial head. And it was New Year's Eve. This happened on New Year's Eve. Now it's New Year's Eve. And I was like, I'm not going to the emergency room on New Year's Eve. I knew something was bad because the pain was bad. And I was like, I'm not going to the emergency room. I called up one of the doctors from this group. She's an orthopedic surgeon. And I was like, Sean, what do I do? She walked me through the exam and she just basically guided me through it. And so not only was it New Year's Eve, but the next day I was going to take a flight to San Francisco to go visit my brother and his family the next morning. And so she just guided me through it. And she said, you know what? It's fine. Go on your trip. Put a sling on it. Go on your trip. You have so much swelling right now. And she's like, when you come back, we'll get an x-ray and we'll take care of it all for you. And I think that was amazing because I actually didn't have any other orthopedic friends that I would have been able to call or ask or anything. So I think that was all through that connection. And I was just feel very lucky and blessed to have these women in my life.
The power of connection and community. There's nothing greater. So there's going to be other doctors that are going to listen to this, or maybe people like your daughter who are thinking about going into medicine. What do you want to say to them about them and their journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the most meaningful parts of my journey and challenges, I feel is so important for others like my daughter or others who are potentially pre-med students or medical students or just starting their medical careers, right? It's okay. I want them to understand that you will face challenges, that things change in life, and it's okay to take a step back and figure out what speaks to you and figure out what brings you joy or what drains your joy. So it's important to just continuously be asking yourself that because we're in different places in our lives as we go through our lives. And I think it's okay to say, I want to pivot or I want to change or I want to do something different. I always thought that once I was in family medicine and I was an employed part-time physician, that this is just where I'm going to be. This is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. But I want people to know that it's okay to even start something from scratch. If you're thinking about doing it and that's what brings you joy, then just do it. Because like Nike says, just do it. Because it's really anything is possible in this field of medicine. I see too many times where young physicians are discouraged by older physicians who say that this is a very difficult field. Don't do medicine, do anything else but medicine. And I absolutely don't feel that way. I think this is one of the most wonderful fields that I am so blessed to be able to be a part of. It is the most rewarding thing I've done in my life and continues to be that way. And I think that we just have to get clear on what it is that we need to do for our own lives that brings everyone joy.
Well said. That is amazing wisdom. It really is. Thanks for listening to the MedStory Podcast, where we share the stories of the greatest minds in science and medicine. I'm your host, Spencer Locke, with a special thanks to our executive producer, Shina May. Our music comes from Blue Dot Sessions and the Descript Audio Library. The MedStory Podcast is made possible by MedStory Studios and listeners like you. So if you'd like to support us, please leave a review. It means more than you know. And if you have a story to share or want to produce a podcast of your own, reach out to us at info@medstorymedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode.